Greetings, travelers, and welcome to episode 32 of WesteroScraft Walks with your ever-curious host, Dutchguard. In today's episode, we will be checking out Spottswood, the seat of House Santa Gar. You can see their castle just over the bay there, and we'll be heading there eventually, but first, I thought we'd start here in the outskirts, and I could just show off some of the accommodations of the small folk of Spottswood. And in today's episode, we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at some of the vegetation, some of the terraforming, some of those cool ships we've got parked in the bay there. We'll also be talking a little bit about the region we're in and the history behind it. We are in Dorne, for those of you who haven't guessed it already. And to be specific, we are on the Broken Arm of Dorne. And this is also home to Sunspear and Lemonwood and Plankytown, which we visited before. It's all on the eastern coast of Dorne, where it meets the Narrow Sea, which is what that body of water is right ahead of us here. And we're on these little fingers that reach out into the Narrow Sea, the fingers of this broken arm, which sort of reach out into the sea. And I'll be talking a little bit about why the broken arm was broken, because it wasn't always broken, but we'll get into that later. So first, let's start here. We've got these little humble accommodations. It's a little less elaborate and less colorful than Plankytown, but again, we are sort of in the outskirts of a region here, and Spottswood isn't necessarily a major location, so we've got sort of smaller houses here to reflect that. And we've got a nice little lodging area here, some beds here for people to sleep in, some drying clothes, some knives for cutting stuff, just all little details like that. We've got these cool little wagons here, some firewood storage. I like this house especially. It's got a really cool little kitchen, sort of like a barrel full of water, some fish hanging out. Got some spices up drying, which of course is very important for the Dornish and their very spicy cuisine. We've got a little prep area for some fish. We've got some netting hanging up. And then we've got all kinds of vegetation here in this area as well, which I'm quite proud of. We did spend a lot of time building all kinds of trees, and they're not just one tree per species, but we've got to make hundreds so they don't all look the same. So we've got date palms here, and you can see sort of the dates hanging out there at the tops of those trees. We've got sand beggars, which are these really scraggly looking trees, sort of low to the ground, with all these little thick fence blocks, and fence blocks just sort of creating that scraggly looking texture. And we've got umbrella pines, these, well, umbrella looking trees all over the place, which are some of my favorites. And those are all real species of tree that we've attempted to recreate in Minecraft. You can look up those trees and see if we've done a good job. Over here we've got some more houses, another little settlement around Spottswood. I've probably got some fishmongers here, and this probably looks like a blacksmith. In here we've got another little residence with sort of an open fire. A little bit dangerous there, but this is Dorne, so everything's already non-combustible anyway. It's all made of this sandstone and plaster brick texture. There's not a lot of wood to go around since it is a relatively arid region of Westeros. Got a nice little kitchen here with some bread, a little furnace here. I like those little furnaces because some of the other furnaces we have are gray and red, and they just don't fit with the Dornish style. So we've created this sandstony looking furnace, and this one's lit, so we do have permalit furnaces. So those are pretty cool feature. Out in the harbor here we've got sort of a galley with its tilted sail, and we've got a big sort of maybe a merchant cog here parked as well. Let's take a look at that. Really love the colors, sort of an American USA theme going on here, but still a really cool ship. You can see its sails furled up in parked position, as it were. It's got a pretty cool masthead as well. It looks like some sort of bird thing, which we've just cleverly made out of some marble bricks. And in this area we've got another little set of houses, and I think I did check this out before, and so we've got this well, which is lifting seawater up from the water table and bringing it up to this salt pan. And of course, if you recall from our salt pans video, we explained a little bit about how the people of Westeros make salt, and so we've got piles of salt here, and that's probably very important for the Dornish, since they don't really have any refrigeration of any kind to store meat, so salt is really their only option in terms of keeping things, not cool, but able to be eaten. We also have these really cool fruit slab textures. I think these are relatively new. I don't know if I show those off in Plankytown, but I think they're really cool. Just another added texture, because before we only had these big crates, but now we've got things, little baskets for lemons and that looks like it could be dates and oranges, all kinds of cool stuff. And then another cool little thing is these little market stalls on wheels, and these are our new wheel textures. We've got a little stall here, a little cart for cured meats, and one for fish, with appropriately colored carpeting on top, which I think is just a cool little innovative way some of our builders have used the blocks available to them. We've got another little stall here, perhaps selling netting or rope or something, which of course is also very important, especially in a sort of harbor area. Right, so we're going to follow the road around and get to the keep of the Santa Gars now. And you can see some of the more of those beautiful trees here, some of the date palms and the sand beggars. We've also got these little palms as well, which I think just add to the variety. Like I said before, we had to make so many different varieties of trees just to keep things fresh, and so you're not, walking through a forest and every tree looks the same. So here we've got some of that desert terraforming that I hinted about at the beginning of the video. This is one of my favorite parts about Dorne, and all we did really was take the snow layer texture and make it sandy, and so that's what you're looking at here, is this beautiful, almost seamless dunes here stretching out into the horizon. Really beautiful. It just creates this really awesome deserty effect. Took a while to perfect, but we managed to get it done. We did it in World Painter. Don't ask me how. Really complicated, but eventually we got it to work, and I think it really looks great. If you look on our dynamic map from our homepage, you'll be able to see that we actually built dunes in crescent shapes, moving away from the sea, of course, because the sea breeze blows those dunes across the land. And so we've really paid close attention to detail in terms of forming the desert and the dunes. And this, like I said, this just stretches on forever until you reach a settlement or an oasis. So that's just some cool exploring there. Very dangerous, though, if you're traveling, because you're going to run out of water and food very quickly, because there's pretty much nothing out there. And we also have these really cool Dorne terrain sets. You can see sort of the dusty gravel, dusty dirt, and the dusty stone that we've created. Again, just to add to sort of the dusty and arid feel of Dorne. So let me talk a little bit about now the Broken Arm of Dorne, because there's some cool lore behind that. So, way back when, before the first men arrived at Westeros, and Westeros was populated only by the children of the forest, really, and giants up in the north, there was a land bridge connecting Essos and Westeros, and that land bridge was between Dorne and by the, was it probably Myr, down by Essos in one of the free cities. It connected to Essos, and the first men actually traveled across that land bridge to get to Westeros. And the children of the forest took notice of this, and they realized the first men weren't so friendly, so they decided to use their dark magic to try and flood the Arm of Dorne, this land bridge, to try and keep the first men from coming across. And it did work, and they sort of shattered the Arm of Dorne, which is why it is now the Broken Arm of Dorne, and formed the Shatterstone Islands, which are sort of the remnants sticking up in the narrow sea on this whole little group of islands, which is disputed between Essos and Westeros, and is sort of the home of lots of pirate lords. We might build some of those places on the Shatterstone Islands, I'm not really sure, but we should do. Pirate's Cove, that sounds pretty good. But anyway, they shattered this arm, this land bridge, but it was too late. There was already enough of the first men settling in Dorne, and slowly, over the years, the first men made their way up north through Westeros, battling the Children of the Forest all the way, and then the Children of the Forest tried to do the same thing with the neck, which I explained in our Moat Cailin video, which sort of failed. The neck had just turned into a swamp, didn't really cut off the northern half of Westeros from the southern half, and realizing that the Children of the Forest didn't really have any choice but to live with the first men, they formed the pact and created peace between them. So that's just a little history of why it is the Broken Arm of Dorne. It used to be a land bridge connecting with Essos, and is now just sort of this shattered, claw-looking thing coming out of the bottom of Westeros. Right, so let's take a look at the Spottswood Castle, the seat of House Santa Gar, as I said. It's important to note that they are a family of landed knights. And landed knights, basically, all that is a knight that was given land by a lord or a king. So they aren't noble, so they can't really call them a lord. They're purely just knights. But some knights are more powerful than some lords. So the Santa Gars, who are quite powerful in terms of their allegiance to House Martell, they have a pretty sizable keep, I think. Well, this is a pretty sizable keep for a knight. So they're doing pretty well. This is probably a bigger keep than maybe some of the smaller keeps of the lords in the Riverlands. But again, it is important to make the distinction that they are simply knights and not lords. Here you've got a nice little melee pit, which I think is quite cool. You've got these lemon bushes as well, which is a custom texture of ours, because the desert biome is quite suited for growing lemons. It's also a feature and staple of the Dornish cuisine. And we've got this little sept, of course, because the Andals brought the Faith of the Seven all the way down through Dorne as well. So we've got a little sept there. Let's see if we can find a hall of some sort. This must be a little audience chamber for the Night of Spottswood. I have to be careful not to say Lord. That is really important. I mean, they do spend a lot of time making sure that you know the difference between a Lord and a landed knight. And I don't think I've really covered any landed knights yet in our videos so far, so here's your first one, the Night of Santa Gar. Here we've got a little feast hall here. You can see the Lord's... Oh god, not the Lord's, the Knight's dais. See, it's so hard not to say it. You've got these really cool windows with these red shutters, again, looking out onto the town and the bay and out into the narrow sea. Some cool views there. And just walking along this wall here, you can see sort of some other parts of the castle here. I want to see what's in here, actually. This must be... this is the main hall. I figured I'd miss the main hall. It's just down here. Whee! You've got all these long tables here, and the knight's dais up here, which is quite cool. Yeah, I've got some big hunk of meat here, ready to be served up. So it's got all the sort of features and accommodations of your average castle or keep, but just a little bit smaller, perhaps. Right. So let me see. There's one last thing that I want to find. You can probably guess what it is. Where are you? I will find you. Yes, I think I see some cages up in this tower here. Just want to check it out real quick. Yes, we've got a rookery up here. Thank you, thank you. We've got a little box of meat here for feeding the ravens, which is good. Some sacks of grain for feeding them as well. So I guess they are sort of just omnivores, ravens. I never even realized that, but they do eat meat and grain, or corn, should be. We've got a little outhouse here, which is quite good. Good, you know, for the sanitation, instead of just, you know, pooing in the sea, which isn't always the best way to go. We've got a little hall here, which I said again, we saw earlier. Alright, let's get to our view. Let's get to our view and finish this video, because I think I've pretty much covered everything in this keep already. We've got a little armory here, which is quite cool. Some sort of suits of armor and helmets as well. Okay, here we are. So you can see out into the bay here, that bay, and you can see we are sort of on one of those fingers stretching out into the narrow sea, which is out this way beyond the castle. So guys, thank you so much for watching episode 32, Spottswood. We have episodes every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday, so I will see you next time for episode 33.